This is an I Am Listening original podcast.
What I have got a problem with is what I'm seeing across my town centre in Gillingham, and I know others have referenced this as well, is where you see essentially people going around putting up tags, graffiti that's not been done in the right way. Now, it's an antisocial behaviour issue, but it also, what it does is it impacts everybody because it makes the whole community and the area look really terrible.
Welcome to the Kent Politics Podcast.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Kent Politics Podcast. I'm Nikki White, Senior News Editor with the KM Media Group, and this week we've got yet another KCC Councillor joining a new party, how one authority is helping people with the cost of living crisis, and an MP who is urging her constituents to take a stand against graffiti. But first on Kent Online today, we have a special report into one of the county's MPs. Local democracy reporter Dan Essen has written a piece about Tunbridge MP Tom Tugendhat, who has declared more in outside interest since the start of 2025 than any other Kent MP, and by some distance. So Dan, why have we taken a deep dive into his extra work?
Well, I was interested in it at first because last month I did a story for Kent Online which compiled all of the MPs' interests into one big spreadsheet. And basically doing that, I spent most of my time looking at Tom Tugendhat's spreadsheet of interest because he declared by far the most of any. Across all of Kent, it's just under £500,000 worth of interests, and that's pay for side jobs, paid for trips, all that kind of thing. And about £200,000 of that was Tom Tugendhat, and it's only grown since I first looked at it. It's fair enough to do a story covering all of Kent's MPs, but we thought it would be only right, since one man was responsible for a considerable amount of it. We thought it worth looking at him in much more detail.
Okay, and what did you find of particular interest?
Well, so for starters, he's the only Kent MP who maintains proper side jobs in the sense that he has regular paid commitments. So he has one job as a member of the advisory board for an environmental science company called Solnox. For that, he's paid £8,750 a quarter for what he declares as 10 hours work a month. He also recently got a new job on the side as a advisor to a Dubai-based think tank called the Observer Research Foundation Middle East, for which he's paid 50,000 American dollars a year, about I think 34 grand in British pounds that is, and he gets something like $3 grand a month from this. And those are just side jobs. What I think is more politically relevant and interesting is the amount of travel. He's spent 64 days since the start of 2025 either on paid for trips or travelling, and he's really quite globetrotting compared to most MPs, especially most ones in Kent.
Okay, and how does this compare to other MPs in Kent?
Well, it's very considerable. A lot of Kent MPs have declared no interest at all, or very, very minimal amount. Like some have declared they get free parking from their district council if they're there on constituency business or something like that. But Tom Tugendhat has been away on an international trip of some sort pretty much every couple of weeks since the start of 2025. It really is considerable, and it's not just a quick day trip to France for a conference or something like that. It's 5 days in New York here, 5 days in Washington DC there, a couple of weeks in Taiwan at separate points, a couple of journeys to India. He really does get around more so than any other MP in Kent.
And what has he had to tell us about it?
Well, unfortunately, he hasn't had anything to say about it. I've attempted to contact him 3 times, each time not got an answer. I have an idea about what he would probably say if he did respond, which is that everyone who votes for him knows that foreign policy is one of his big things, and it's perfectly legitimate for a British politician to maintain these sort of political and personal relationships around the globe for the purpose of expanding their views and what he thinks is in the best interests of the country. But he didn't really see fit to even respond to justify that, which I think is unfortunate. I think many members of the public, if you told them, do you work a full-time job? If you spend 60 days of the year travelling away from your regular place of work, they would be quite sceptical of that and probably think, well, in what way are the interests of the people of Tunbridge or of Britain served by a backbench MP going to Taiwan for a week at a time and speaking to journalists and politicians in Canada and the United States? I think most people would be very sceptical of that. And we gave them the opportunity to make a positive case for why he does all these things, and he didn't take that opportunity.
Okay, and why does it matter that we report this?
Well, for starters, it's important to stress we're not making any suggestion of impropriety here. Parliamentary Register of Interest system exists for exactly this reason. All of this is perfectly legitimate and above board. It's all been registered in the proper way. He is allowed to do these things in every sense of the term. But it's important because Tom Tugendhat is first and foremost a member of Parliament for Tunbridge and a member of the National Legislature of Great Britain. He has his job description is representing the interests of his constituents and legislating on their behalf. And more so than any other Kent MP, he spends an awful lot of time travelling around the world and doing things quite other than that. Perhaps there is some vital interest for the people of Tunbridge at stake in the relations between Britain and Taiwan, but he hasn't taken any opportunity to argue that. And it's politically important that I think that residents know that an MP, when given the opportunity, spends quite a lot of time doing things which I think many people would say have a tenuous connection at best to his primary job.
OK, thanks, Dan. It's been a never-ending merry-go-round at Kent County Council since Reform UK swept into office last May with a landslide majority. The dizzying comings and goings, the expulsions and even the imprisonment of one Reform UK member are often hard to keep up with. The latest is the Ashford representative Bill Barrett. He was expelled from Reform UK last October for allegedly bringing the party into disrepute and immediately set up the Independent Reformers Group. He declined the offer to join Restore Britain, which currently has 7 members, because he felt the new party formed by former Reform MP Rupert Lowe was too right-wing for his centre-right sensibilities. Now he has decided to join the Conservatives at County Hall, bringing their numbers in the chamber to 6. For Councillor Barrett, this is a homecoming of sorts. He was a member of the Tories for 8 years when he was elected at Ashford Borough Council, but he left to join an independent group there after a falling out. Now he is in the embrace of his new leader, Harry Rayner, who says he will bring wisdom and experience to his team. Councillor Barrett said that he was overjoyed to be back in the Tory fold and that he feels more comfortable with the party than he did when he was a part of Reform UK. Asked if his change of parties might lead to criticism, Councillor Barrett said, "I think that sometimes in life you go on journeys and I feel as if I have ended up in the right place." He continued, "Harry Rayner is a decent man and I am happy and comfortable working with him. I certainly did not feel comfortable with Reform UK and I'm glad that's all over." So does it actually make any difference to the numbers? Not really. The Conservatives remain the 4th largest group at County Hall, but Councillor Rayner feels sure that more councillors from other groups will be willing to cross over to them. The Tories are scenting a scalp in the forthcoming Cliftonville by-election in Margate. If their candidate, Charlie Lays, is returned, the Tories will be numerically on the same footing as Restore Britain. Reform is tipped to hold the seat, which they captured with 40% of the vote in May last year, with Thanet councillor Mark Rattigan as the candidate. Reform is quietly confident of retaining it, but can expect stiff opposition from Labour's Joanne Bright, the Green Party's Rob Yates and Dr Naushabah. The contest is shaping up to be a bit of a humdinger, with political big guns having been to Thanet already. Caroline Lucas has endorsed the Greens, Emily Thornbury for Laneborough and Lord Craig McKinley for the Tories. Reform's Robert Jenrick was due on Thursday. Perhaps the seriousness with which the parties are taking the by-election can be measured by how so many prominent names have already been in town so early in the contest.
Is there a topic that you would like to be discussed on the Kent Politics podcast? Perhaps you've got a question for one of our panel, or you'd like to comment on a hot topic in local or national government. Get in touch by emailing or sending a voice note to kentpoliticspodcast@thekmgroup.co.uk.
The cost of living is still a pressure many people across the county are facing, and Medway Council's Cabinet has agreed a new set of schemes which will use £4.6 million to support low-income households. The Crisis and Resilience Fund is taking up where the Household Support Fund and the discretionary housing payments left off, and the Town's Council says they have a particular focus on using this money to help residents get away from the most serious financial situations and develop some resilience. There will still be direct payments for those in the most serious need. However, the authority will be investing in adult education, helping people to develop maths and English skills to improve their employment prospects, as well as learning how to manage their household finances. Further down the track, Medway Council is also preparing to open a community supermarket, which will act as a stepping stone away from food banks for those who rely on them. There will also be money going towards community organisations, including food banks, so those in need can help the access that they require. One major change will be that the free school meal system for school holidays is to come to an end after Easter. This is a national change as the government is trying to move away from blanket measures, but Medway Council says measures in the new CRF will ensure no child suffers. These include family events during the school holidays where a hot meal is included, as well as family hubs. Free school meals during term times will continue as normal. Are you sick of seeing crap graffiti all over your town centre? That's exactly the question Gillingham and Rainham MP Naushabah Khan has been asking her constituents. She says she's not against all graffiti, but what she is fed up with is the rising amount of tagging and swearing being plastered over walls and buildings. She feels it's getting worse, particularly in the Gillingham area, and thinks it's time to take a stand and stop what is essentially antisocial behaviour from dragging down the community. Now, many people won't bother to report it when they see a new bit of tagging, but she says that's exactly what they need to do, so the authorities can get a true sense of the scale of the problem. Then they can look at options to clean it up, try to stop it happening again, and maybe look at adding community artwork to brighten the place up. Here she is.
I think I want to be really clear that I don't actually dislike graffiti. I think there is a space for it in our communities, and there are times when I've seen some brilliant graffiti and I think that looks great and people have done it really tastefully. But actually, what I have got a problem with is what I'm seeing across my town centre in Gillingham, and I know others have referenced this as well, is where you see essentially people going around putting up tags, graffiti that's not been done in the right way. Now, it's an antisocial behaviour issue, but it also, what it does is it impacts everybody because it makes the whole community and the area look really terrible. And I think that's the piece that I want us to address, because it's that sense of you're walking around and you think nobody cares about this place because it's covered in horrible tagging or bits of graffiti that just look awful, swear words, as well as, you know, pictures of things that you just don't want to see. And it's really sort of dragging down what our community looks and feels like.
And you mentioned about seeing it in the town centre. Just how widespread is it? You know, are you seeing it around every corner? How big a problem is it?
So certainly I've noticed an increase actually in recent months, which is part of the reason why I wanted to do the video, because obviously graffiti has always existed. You've always see a bit of it around the place. But what I've noticed in recent months is that there's been an increase, certainly in Gillingham. And I have seen it. Obviously, the town centre is the very obvious space where you see it and where people are out and about. But actually, if you walk around Gillingham and other parts, you'll see it in lots of spaces, on road signs. And this is the really frustrating bit. Sometimes it's on the side of people's houses and on private property, which is so unfair. It also makes it a lot trickier for the council to clear it up, because they have to go through special permissions in order to be able to kind of get rid of that. So it feels to me that it's getting worse, which is part of the reason why I want to address this and I want us to tackle it. And I want people in Gillingham, particularly because that's the part of my constituency where I've noticed it the most, although I appreciate it in other areas as well, to feel that people do care about this and that this is a community that we're not going to just accept it and carry on.
So what can be done to tackle it? I might imagine it's a tricky thing to sort of police, because it quite often happens at night time, in the dark, in sort of out of the way places sometimes. What can be done to reduce it?
So it is a tricky issue to try and tackle for all the reasons that you've just highlighted. But one of the things that I did find out when I spoke to the council about it is that there is a huge amount of underreporting. So there were only, within a particular area in the town centre, there were only 11 instances of graffiti being reported to the council, compared to what you would actually see if you walk outside and you walk around. And I myself was able to count far more than 11 instances of quite bad graffiti. So I think one of the first things to do is to start to ensure that we can really get a grip of the problem and how widespread it is and just how often it's happening and where it's happening. And the only way to really do that is through the reporting. Now, I recognise why people might be a bit, they might think it's not worth their time to complain because they think that nothing will get done. But I want to assure them that please do report it, because it's those reports that we need to look at to get a sense of the scale of the problem. That's why I did a video encouraging people to do that. That's why I myself have been reporting instances of graffiti, and I'd ask that others do the same. That will give us a sense of exactly the scale. Then I think it's about looking at options. So certainly I would like to look at options around cleaning it up. Of course, that does cost money, and some of it is on private property. So we just need to have a little think about how that works and making sure we have the correct permissions, but it's something we absolutely need to explore. Secondly, we maybe do need to look at opportunities where there are certain areas where perhaps they could benefit from a mural or a piece of artwork that we can design with the local community, with young people, that looks nice, that is engaging, that brings them in, but isn't the awful tagging that you might see that makes the area feel run down and just tired. The other part of that is that we can also identify the areas where it is a real problem, and perhaps there we can work closely with the police to see what is possible. It's not always going to be possible to stop this happening, I recognise that, but certainly what we need to do is send out the message that people do care about this and it's not okay. And if you do this, then there are consequences. And I think that's the piece that I really want to get across. So the reporting is key to this.
That's it for this week. Don't forget you can keep up to date with politics in Kent at Kent Online. You can also sign up to our politics briefing newsletter at kentonline.co.uk/newsletters. And don't miss KMTV's politics show every Friday at 5 p.m. Thanks again for joining us.
Thanks for listening to the Kent Politics Podcast. Don't forget to check out stories throughout the week on the politics page of Kent Online. And you can watch the Kent Politics Show on KMTV every Friday at 5 p.m. or on demand at kmtv.co.uk.
This has been an I Am Listening original podcast. For more information, head over to our website, im-listening.co.uk.